Today, I want to talk to you about something that goes far beyond what we can see, track, or even predict with our natural senses. Something that has to do with how the mind perceives possibility and how the spirit responds to delay. This isn't just about mindset, though mindset matters. It's about timing, vision, and trust in unseen mechanisms, specifically how God is opening financial doors that you can't yet see. From a neurobiological standpoint, our brains are wired to seek certainty. We're constantly scanning for patterns and outcomes that fit within our current reality. But what if most significant breakthroughs in your life are happening behind the scenes, beyond the reach of your five senses, beyond the bandwidth of your current understanding? You see, delayed outcomes, especially in the realm of finances, can create psychological strain. But what if that delay is not denial, but divine preparation? What if you're not behind, you're being aligned? This talk is not just motivational. It's meant to recalibrate how you view your circumstances. Because while your conscious mind is looking for results, the Spirit of God may already be orchestrating provision, connections, and breakthroughs in dimensions you haven't even accessed yet. Let's explore how to live with spiritual anticipation, grounded focus, and the kind of trust that rewires your stress into expectancy, because financial doors are opening even if they're still invisible. The human brain is a remarkable system built for survival, pattern recognition, and prediction. It's constantly scanning the environment for what's visible, measurable, and understandable. This is how we navigate the physical world, through what we can see, hear, touch, and quantify. But the spiritual realm operates on an entirely different wavelength. It doesn't always conform to what the brain can immediately perceive. That's where the tension arises between faith and logic, between the visible and the invisible, especially when it comes to something as emotionally charged and practically essential as finances. When we are in a season where provision is not evident, when opportunities seem scarce and the doors appear closed, the brain responds in predictable ways. Cortisol levels increase, signaling stress. The prefrontal cortex begins to overanalyze, looping thoughts of fear, doubt, and self-preservation. Our survival instincts kick in, narrowing our focus on the immediate lack. But this biological response often blinds us to what's unfolding in the spiritual realm. Just because you can't see something happening doesn't mean it's not. Just because your logical mind can't track the movement doesn't mean movement isn't occurring. God operates in ways that transcend our natural understanding. He does not wait for our sensory confirmation before he begins his work. In fact, most of the time, by the time we finally see the door open, it had already been unlocked long before in the unseen realm. The financial door was already in motion. The opportunity was already being aligned. The resources were already being shifted. But because our brain is trained to believe what it can observe, we often dismiss these seasons as stagnant or fruitless, when they may be the most active spiritual seasons of our lives. This is where faith becomes more than a religious term. It becomes a neural recalibration. Faith literally challenges the dominant circuits in the brain that demand visible proof. It calls you to operate not from what's seen, but from a deeper level of trust, where your expectation overrides your observation. The Apostle Paul wrote, "We walk by faith, not by sight." And that isn't just spiritual encouragement. It's a neurological challenge. It's an invitation to live beyond the limits of your own biology. When you begin to believe that financial doors are opening, even when you can't see them, you shift your internal narrative. That shift begins to calm the brain's survival instincts. It reduces stress chemicals and reactivates creativity, peace, and vision. You start seeing possibilities again, not because they suddenly appeared, but because your perception has changed. Your eyes begin to adjust in the dark, like someone walking into a dimly lit room. At first, everything is unclear. But with time, shapes begin to take form. That's how spiritual awareness works. What was once invisible begins to come into view. God doesn't need your eyes to approve what he's doing. He's not restricted by your current situation or limited by the patterns your brain recognizes. He works outside of your view, behind the curtain, and often within the silence. The mind says, nothing's changing, but the spirit discerns something is shifting. This contrast is the battleground where most people give up, because they assume that if they can't see progress, there must be none. But some of the greatest breakthroughs begin in the blind spots. The invisible moves before the visible follows. Every act of faith you take, whether it's sowing a seed, stewarding what little you have, or choosing to remain generous in a lean season, is a statement that you trust the invisible hand of God more than the visible signs of your bank account. Your brain may resist that. It may say, be cautious, wait until you see more evidence, but the Spirit says, move, trust, obey. That tension is not a signal that something's wrong. It's proof that you're growing beyond the limitations of sight. There are doors being formed in silence, doors that don't creak open with warning. They swing wide without notice. That's how God often moves, suddenly but never randomly. The preparation was happening all along, just not in your line of sight. While you're looking for the next opportunity on the left, God might be building a bridge on the right. But if your brain is locked into only what's visible, you may miss the direction the Spirit is leading you. This is why spiritual sensitivity is not optional when you're navigating financial uncertainty. You need to listen, discern, and walk in a way that doesn't always make logical sense, but is anchored in deep trust. There is wisdom in understanding how the brain works, how it defaults to survival, how it clings to patterns and proofs. But there is also power in choosing to live above that mechanism, to engage in a kind of spiritual neuroplasticity, where your faith begins to rewire your perception. Instead of asking, what do I see? You begin to ask, what is God doing that I can't yet see? And that question alone opens a new level of awareness. It invites the possibility that provision is already on its way, that answers are already en route, that favor is being formed in a place your eyes haven't reached yet. When financial breakthroughs seem delayed, the mind begins to create narratives to explain the absence of results. These narratives are often rooted in fear, inadequacy, or the assumption that we've been forgotten or disqualified. The natural instinct is to interpret delay as denial because the human brain prefers quick feedback loops. It wants to see a cause and effect relationship. You worked, you prayed, you gave, you believed, and now where's the result? But the spiritual economy doesn't operate on our timelines or demand instant visibility. What appears as delay is often God's strategy for divine timing, which includes preparation, alignment, and protection. Biologically, delay can feel like a threat. The brain starts to perceive a lack of outcome as a signal that something's wrong. The emotional centers of the brain, like the amygdala, begin to heighten stress responses. This creates a cycle of internal pressure. We assume that because we haven't seen the result, we must change our approach, push harder, or give up entirely. But in the spiritual realm, delay can be the very space where God does his most precise work. It's not a void, it's a workshop. It's where character is refined, discernment is sharpened, and dependency on him deepens. Divine timing means there are elements involved in your financial breakthrough that go beyond your immediate action. Sometimes the timing is about someone else being in position to bless you. Sometimes it's about your inner readiness to carry what you're asking for. Other times it's about doors being closed temporarily to protect you from what your current state of mind can't yet steward. God sees the full map. You see one turn at a time. He's not working with delay as punishment. He's using it as precision. There's no wasted time in his process, even when to you it feels like nothing is happening. During these periods of waiting, many give up right before the moment of release. That's because delayed results wear down the nervous system. Dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, relies on anticipation. But when anticipation doesn't convert into results, the dopamine system begins to burn out. This is why spiritual endurance isn't just emotional, it's physiological. The delay tests not only your faith but your ability to regulate your expectations. When you manage that tension with trust instead of anxiety, you build spiritual and mental resilience. You begin to grow stronger in the waiting than you ever could have in immediate gratification. There are moments when God intentionally slows the visible to accelerate the invisible. You may not realize it, but while the numbers aren't moving, your name is being mentioned in rooms you haven't entered. While the email hasn't come, someone is considering you for an opportunity. While the funds haven't arrived, the systems required to support your next level are being constructed. God is not passive in your waiting. He's precise. His timing is synchronized with factors you don't yet know exist. If he gave you what you asked for too early, it might overwhelm or even sabotage you. So the delay becomes a form of divine protection and preparation. Think about how a seed works. You plant it, water it, wait. For days or even weeks, nothing seems to happen. But beneath the soil, activity is taking place. Roots are being formed. Structure is being developed. If you judged the seed's success by what you saw above ground, you'd assume failure. But the truth is, what happens beneath the surface is more critical than the first visible sprout. The delay is not death, it's development. And if you pull the seed up too early, you forfeit the fruit. Financial breakthroughs are often hidden in the soil of time, requiring patience, trust, and belief in the unseen process. When your financial door hasn't opened yet, it's easy to think you're not worthy, not ready, or not seen. But God doesn't delay based on your worthiness. He aligns based on your calling. He's not slow, he's strategic. And strategy always takes into account multiple variables. Your readiness, the readiness of others, the timing of systems, the unseen battles you don't know he's already fought for you. All of it matters. Sometimes what feels like a silent season is actually a shielded one. God may be holding you back from something that looks like a blessing, but would ultimately create breakdown. The challenge is to shift your mindset from delay as punishment to delay as process. That shift begins with accepting that God is not absent in the silence. He's working within it. That kind of trust rewires your internal posture. Instead of striving, you settle. Instead of forcing outcomes, you prepare for them. Instead of anxiety, you choose expectancy. That expectancy creates a new rhythm inside you where you're no longer a prisoner to time but a partner with timing. You begin to see waiting not as a waste but as part of the way God opens doors you couldn't have opened on your own. Faith is not just a spiritual principle, it's also a neurological shift. The way we believe, what we expect, hope for, or imagine actually has measurable effects on the brain and body. When someone operates from a position of expectancy, the brain's reward systems become activated. Dopamine is released not just when we receive something good, but when we anticipate something good. In other words, your mindset of expectation has a chemical signature. When you live with faith that something is coming, especially something as significant as financial breakthrough, you begin to engage with the world differently, not just spiritually, but neurologically. The default mode of the brain during uncertainty is to go into self-protection. It becomes hyper, focused on threats, scarcity, and what might go wrong. That's why many people, when facing financial pressure, start to shrink their vision. They pull back, get anxious, and begin to catastrophize. This is not weakness. It's simply how the brain is wired to protect you. But what faith does is interrupt that survival loop. It offers a different narrative to your nervous system. Faith says there is more ahead even when there's less around. It dares you to believe in possibilities you can't yet prove. And when you lean into that mindset, you're not just thinking differently. You're literally altering the neural pathways that control your emotional state. Faith shifts you from a reactive life to a proactive one. When you believe that God is opening financial doors, even those you can't yet see, you stop responding to life based only on what's happening now. You start positioning yourself for what's coming. You begin to make decisions not just based on limitation, but on preparation. That's a neurological upgrade. Instead of allowing the fear-driven parts of the brain to dictate your behavior, like the amygdala, you begin engaging the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning, vision, and strategy. Faith doesn't ignore reality, it reinterprets it. It says, yes, things may look tight right now, but I'm preparing for expansion. The beautiful thing about expectancy is that it's contagious within your system. When you truly believe that provision is coming, your body begins to align with that belief. Your energy increases, your resilience improves, your immune system even responds to positive expectation. From a scientific standpoint, hope and belief reduce stress, improve focus, and increase creativity. So faith isn't just a spiritual exercise, it's also an act of stewardship over your mental and physical well-being. When God invites you to trust Him, He's not just trying to get you to think differently. He's giving you the opportunity to live healthier, more grounded, and more aware. Nowhere is this more evident than during financial uncertainty. Most people think that peace comes when the money shows up, when the door opens, when the breakthrough is visible. But neuroscience and scripture both teach that peace is not the result of external change. It's the result of internal alignment. When you align your thoughts with what God has spoken, even if you can't see it yet, you create space inside for peace to flourish, the brain calms, the anxiety reduces, the obsessive loops of fear begin to unwind. You are no longer in survival mode. You've entered a mode of trust, and that is where clarity begins to return. From that place of trust, decisions become clearer. You're no longer driven by panic, but by purpose. You're able to hear God's voice more distinctly because the static of fear has been turned down. That inner clarity is one of the most powerful assets you can have during seasons of uncertainty. It allows you to move wisely, with discernment, without being paralyzed by the unknown. And all of it begins with faith. Faith that God is not only aware of your situation, but actively working on your behalf to open doors you haven't seen yet. Faith also helps you resist the trap of comparison. When you believe that God has something specific for you, your eyes stop wandering to what others have. You begin to trust that your timing, your path, and your doors are unique. That reduces the emotional pressure to perform, to catch up, or to feel behind. Comparison is one of the most draining habits the brain can engage in. It constantly tells you that what you have is not enough. But when faith rewires your brain to believe in what's coming, gratitude for the present increases. You start to see what you do have as evidence that more is on the way. This is why expectancy is not passive. It's active. It's a mindset that positions your whole being to move forward even before you have proof. It's a deep internal shift from scarcity to possibility, and that shift changes how you pray, how you think, how you plan, and how you respond to delays. Faith and expectancy pull your future into your present by preparing you to receive what God is already orchestrating behind the scenes. They are the bridges between the invisible and the visible, the yet-to-be and the now, becoming. Spiritual alignment is one of the most underestimated forces behind tangible breakthroughs, especially in the realm of finances. It is easy to focus on external outcomes, bank balances, job offers, business deals, unexpected provisions, but often what precedes all of that is something invisible taking place within. There is an inner order that must come before outer abundance. When your heart, thoughts, motives, and decisions are in alignment with God's principles and timing, the external begins to shift in response. Provision flows not just to need, but to alignment. It flows where the heart is postured correctly, where stewardship has been cultivated, and where trust outweighs anxiety. Most people pursue financial change by focusing on external strategies. They search for better jobs, more income streams, and smarter investments. And while those things have value, they are limited if there's internal misalignment. When the soul is cluttered with fear, comparison, pride, or mistrust, even a financial increase can turn into a burden instead of a blessing. That's why God often delays financial elevation until there is enough internal space to carry it well. He's not just trying to give you more. He's preparing you to become someone who can handle more without being crushed by it. When you begin to bring your heart into alignment with divine priorities, something shifts in the spiritual atmosphere. You become sensitive to how you treat money, how you handle lack, how you speak about your situation, and how you see others in seasons of abundance or drought. That sensitivity sharpens discernment. You begin to see that how you manage what you already have is the training ground for what's coming. Gratitude becomes a tool of alignment. Honoring what's already in your hand, no matter how small, signals to heaven that you are not operating from entitlement but stewardship. Spiritual alignment is also about trust. It's easy to say you trust God, but financial pressure often reveals where our trust actually rests. If we panic when the numbers don't line up or fall apart, when something unexpected hits our accounts, it shows how deeply we've placed our faith in systems, routines, or income rather than in the source. God doesn't shame us for this, but He often uses those very moments to realign our hearts. When we finally admit that we can't carry the weight of provision alone, we surrender control. That surrender is not weakness. It is the very thing that invites divine strength and direction. Alignment also affects your thinking patterns. When your mind is set on the Spirit, your perception of finances changes. You no longer see money as a measure of your worth, but as a resource to fulfill your purpose. You stop chasing status and start building legacy. You resist fear-based decisions and instead make choices from a place of peace. This mental clarity opens space for creativity and solutions that panic could never produce. Your decisions improve because they're rooted in calm trust, not urgent desperation. Your heart becomes anchored, and that anchor keeps you steady even when the waves of lack or delay come. There's also a timing component to alignment. Sometimes the door hasn't opened not because you're off track, but because God is synchronizing multiple elements at once. He may be preparing people you're meant to work with, aligning circumstances you can't see yet, or even maturing your inner life so that when the provision comes, you'll carry it with wisdom. Spiritual alignment means you move when God says move, not when your anxiety says move. It means waiting without retreating, hoping without manipulating, and obeying without full understanding. And that kind of obedience creates a channel for provision to flow freely. It's important to remember that alignment does not mean perfection. It means agreement. It means choosing daily to come back into agreement with what God says about you, your provision, and your purpose. That agreement might mean letting go of bitterness towards someone who owes you, releasing fear about the future, or changing your attitude toward giving. Every small act of obedience in these areas creates internal alignment, and when the inside is aligned, the outside becomes a natural extension of that order. The more aligned you are spiritually, the more sensitive you become to divine direction. You begin to feel nudges in your spirit that guide your financial steps. You get quiet instructions. Apply here, give there, wait a little longer, ask that person. These aren't loud announcements. They're whispers that only aligned hearts can detect. When you listen and act, even when it doesn't make sense, you begin to see outcomes that logic alone could never have produced. It's not about striving, it's about syncing. Syncing your internal rhythm with God's higher plan. And when that sync is established, flow becomes the default. Not necessarily ease in every moment, but divine rhythm in every season. Discomfort is often misinterpreted as a sign that something is wrong, when in fact it can be one of the clearest indicators that something new is forming. The human brain is designed to resist change because change brings uncertainty, and uncertainty triggers the brain's threat response system. When you are on the edge of a financial breakthrough, you may feel more pressure, confusion, or emotional intensity than usual. That's not always a reflection of failure or misdirection. Many times, it's your internal system stretching to hold what's coming. Your current mindset is trying to adjust to a level of abundance or opportunity it has never known before. What you're feeling in these moments is not just emotional tension. It's neurological rewiring. The beliefs you've held about money, worth, security, and provision are being challenged and restructured. For years, your brain may have been trained by scarcity, by disappointment, or by the fear of not having enough. Those patterns don't just go away when new information arrives. They must be disrupted and replaced. This is where discomfort plays a powerful role. It forces you to confront the parts of your thinking that cannot travel into the next season. It exposes where you are still holding on to control, where your trust is incomplete, and where your expectations are too small in the process of preparing for financial breakthrough. Your routines and assumptions will often be disrupted. What used to work might not anymore. The sources you once depended on may dry up. The people you leaned on may go silent. This isn't punishment, it's transition. God often removes outdated supports so that your weight of trust shifts entirely onto Him. When that shift happens, the discomfort increases because your internal compass is being recalibrated. You are no longer navigating by the old map. You are being invited to trust directions that come not from what's visible, but from what's sensed and spiritually discerned. This adjustment period can feel disorienting. You may start to question yourself. You may wonder if you missed a sign or made a wrong turn, but what's really happening is expansion. Your capacity is growing. Your tolerance for uncertainty is increasing. Your spiritual muscles are being exercised. Faith is not just belief. It is also endurance. And in seasons of impending financial favor, endurance is built through tension, waiting, and spiritual stretching. You're being prepared to handle more, but before more can come, your system must be able to sustain it without collapse. Think of how muscles grow. They don't expand in comfort. They expand in resistance. The tension placed on a muscle during lifting is what creates micro tears, and when those tears heal, the muscle becomes stronger and larger. The same principle applies to your inner life. The emotional, spiritual, and mental tension you're experiencing is stretching the container that will hold your next level of provision. If you didn't feel the discomfort, it would mean no growth was taking place. The pain is not punishment. It's proof that transformation is in motion in these seasons. One of the biggest temptations is to shrink back to what feels familiar. The brain wants to return to predictable patterns. It will try to convince you to stop dreaming, to stop expecting, to just be practical. And while wisdom is essential, shrinking is not. Shrinking keeps you aligned with past limitations. Discomfort, on the other hand, is a sign you're moving into unfamiliar territory, space where new outcomes are possible. It's the threshold of breakthrough, the narrow hallway between the ending of one chapter and the beginning of the next during this internal adjustment. It's crucial to be mindful of what you're feeding your thoughts. Your words, your focus, your associations, all of it matters. If you constantly rehearse fear, speak doubt, and surround yourself with small-minded energy, you reinforce the discomfort as a warning rather than an invitation. But if you begin to speak faith, declare what God has promised, and align yourself with people who live with expectancy, you retrain your brain to see discomfort as developmental. You begin to embrace the stretching instead of resisting it. This is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about understanding that growth rarely feels like peace at first. Often, it feels like pressure. The more significant the financial door God is preparing to open, the more internal capacity He must build within you to handle it. That means your patience, your humility, your strategy, and your spiritual discernment must all mature. And maturity is not born in comfort, it is born in process. You are being expanded from the inside out, stretched by invisible hands that are shaping you for a visible outcome that your current self is just beginning to imagine. Discomfort often shows up as delayed answers, closed doors, or confusing transitions. But underneath the surface, your spirit is aligning with what's ahead. You may not recognize it now, but the very tension you're experiencing is evidence that you are closer than you think. God doesn't waste pain. He uses it as preparation. He allows the stretching because He knows the size of the blessing requires strength, endurance, and wisdom. Your capacity is not being tested for no reason. It's being built for what's coming. Gratitude and vision are two of the most powerful tools you can use to engage with financial doors that have not yet opened. These aren't just emotional attitudes or spiritual disciplines. They are technologies of the soul that shift your entire internal environment. Gratitude grounds you in the present and aligns your heart with the goodness of God, while vision pulls you forward into what is yet to come. When used together, they create a bridge between the invisible promise and the visible reality. They allow you to live as if the breakthrough has already begun. Even before you can touch it, gratitude activates a different rhythm in your mind and body. Scientifically, it reduces cortisol, the stress hormone, and increases dopamine and serotonin, which regulate mood and motivation. Spiritually, gratitude repositions your heart. It shifts your focus from what is lacking to what is already present. It declares that God has already been good, and that His faithfulness in the past is evidence of His faithfulness in the future. Gratitude tells your spirit that you're not forgotten, not abandoned, not behind. It brings peace into the chaos and stillness into the storm. And from that place of peace, you can begin to see more clearly. Vision, on the other hand, speaks to where you're going. It's not just hope, it's informed expectation. It's the ability to see beyond the current limitation and recognize that where you are is not where you're staying. Vision gives shape to your future. It paints a picture in your spirit of what is possible, even when your current environment disagrees. Without vision, the people perish, not because they lack ability, but because they lack direction. When you carry vision, you move with intentionality. Your choices, habits, prayers, and declarations begin to align with the outcome you believe is coming. When combined, gratitude and vision become an engine of momentum. Gratitude keeps you from bitterness while you wait. Vision keeps you from settling. Together they fuel perseverance. When you thank God for what you have, even when it feels small, you activate multiplication. God honors grateful hearts. Jesus blessed the loaves and fish before the miracle happened. He gave thanks in lack, and the act of gratitude triggered supernatural increase. That wasn't just a moment of prayer, it was a demonstration of alignment. Gratitude was the key that unlocked the provision, and vision was the reason for the provision in the first place in seasons of financial delay or hidden progress. Gratitude can feel unnatural. The mind wants to fixate on what's missing. The temptation is to become cynical, anxious, or discouraged. But practicing gratitude doesn't require everything to be right. It requires you to look deeper. It forces you to notice the quiet evidence of God's presence, the strength to keep going, the unexpected help that came at the right time, the ideas that still flow even when doors haven't opened yet. Gratitude doesn't deny difficulty. It just refuses to let difficulty define the atmosphere of your heart. Vision, in the same way, requires intentionality. It has to be cultivated, protected, and refreshed. Vision is not a vague wish or daydream. It's a God-breathed blueprint for your future. You receive it in quiet moments through scripture, prayer, and revelation. And once you have it, you are responsible for stewarding it. That means speaking life over it, writing it down, planning for it, and acting in ways that prepare for it. Vision gives you something to aim for, something to get up for, something to endure for. When you believe that financial doors are ahead, even if you can't see them yet, vision gives you the endurance to keep knocking together. Gratitude and vision build resilience. They rewire the mind to expect God's goodness even in times of waiting. They protect you from spiritual amnesia, the tendency to forget how far you've come when you can't see how far you still have to go. They keep your internal environment fertile so that when the door opens, you don't walk through it bitter, exhausted, or unprepared. You walk through it with clarity, strength, and expectation. Gratitude and vision also guard you from comparison. They root you in your own journey. Gratitude reminds you of what God is doing in your life right now. Vision reminds you that your path is custom, designed. You stop measuring your process against someone else's progress. You stop rushing God's timing. You begin to trust that the same God who gave you the vision is preparing the provision. You develop patience not as passivity, but as power under control. This mindset doesn't mean you stop working or planning. It means that your work is no longer fueled by fear or lack. You're not striving to make something happen. You're cooperating with what God is already doing. You sow seeds with joy, make decisions with peace, and resist panic with confidence. Gratitude and vision train your spirit to recognize the signs of movement before anything changes externally. You begin to feel the shift, hear the whispers, sense the nudges. Your discernment sharpens, your faith deepens. You start walking like someone who knows the door is already on its hinges, even if it hasn't swung open yet.